There we go. So this is Toolbox Tuesday. This is an opportunity for us to spend some time either with an internal team or one of our partners. And we've got a partner today. I'm super excited to introduce him here in just a minute. You'll recognize him from some other sessions that he's done with us in the past. As a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, Tim will take an opportunity to answer some of those as he goes throughout his presentation. You can always drop questions in the chat window as well. I can see the chat window the entire time, and I'll ask those questions as we come. For those of you that aren't as comfortable unmuting yourself, really, any question goes. Today we're going to be we're joined by Tim Healy. You may remember Tim. He did a great presentation for us a couple of months ago on ETAP, which is Priority's online ordering product. If you missed that, go back and watch, because it's a really, really impressive product. And he did a great job of walking through how it compares with some of the other solutions in the market. But today, he's going to be talking about MX Merchant. And I'm not going to try and summarize what Merchant is, because it's a whole suite of solutions, some of which are ones that could be used by almost every single merchant, some of which are maybe a little bit more specialized. And I'll let Tim summarize that. Tim works for Priority, and to call Priority kind of a key partner of us is really an understatement. 99.9% of our non-high-risk merchants are boarded onto Priority. You all are familiar with the back end. In fact, the next Toolbox Tuesday, we're going to be talking about MX Connect, which is a new back end that agents will be able to see and interact with. I'll send out more details a little bit later today about that. But for today, Tim is going to be walking us through MX Merchant, and I'm really excited. Again, ask him questions when he takes pauses, ask questions in the chat. Either one of those work. And I think I've stalled long enough to let some people join. So Tim, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you take it from here.
Beautiful, my friend. Thank you so much. Give me a second here to share my screen so everybody can see that. John, if you just give me a thumbs up that we can see it.
It looks good.
Great. Beautiful. So as John said, my name is Tim Healy. I've been with Priority for just a little over 13 years now. And today we're going to take you through the wonderful world of MX Merchant. Guys, this is very informal, laid back. Please feel free to ask questions as we go here. This is for you guys to gain the knowledge that you need to be able to, have the best sales opportunity for you around this product. So let's start with the what. What is MX Merchant? Well, the reality of it is it's a multifaceted payment platform. By the bullet points you can see here, there's a number of different tools and features available within the gateway. Essentially, it's a Swiss Army knife of tools. And I'm not going to read through them because we're actually going to go through those individually and define them for you and let you know how they work and what they do. But first, we do have integrated terminals. Those terminals will talk to the front end or the gateway first before they go out to the back end processor. Today, we have 4 different terminal lines that are certified to our gateway: Deja Vu, Valor, Ingenico, and Pax. When it comes to the terminal integration, you do have a couple of different options in regards to that file build setup. One option would be a semi-integrated solution. A semi-integrated solution means that your merchant wants to initiate the transaction from the gateway and then have the consumer finish the transaction on the terminal. You see that a lot in like doctor's offices and stuff like that, where a receptionist is sitting at the desk. She wants to initiate it from there, and she doesn't want to have to touch the buttons on the credit card terminal. The semi-integrated solutions are available on both Deja Vu and Valor. The other option is an integrated solution. An integrated solution means that the whole transaction is being done at the terminal level. And that will work with all 4 terminal lines that you see on the screen right now. Of course, those terminals can support swipe, chip, NFC, and PIN-based credit transactions. We do have file builds available for both restaurant and retail for those obvious needs. And those transactions from the terminal do report live to the gateway. So if you have an off-site business owner that wants to see what's happening in their business in real time, they can log into the gateway and they can see the transactions within that terminal. Additionally, if you have a merchant that has level 2 or level 3 processing turned on, with our B2B interchange optimizer product, they will capture that lower interchange rate on those integrated terminal solutions. Today, we cannot support EBT or PIN-based debit transactions through the gateway. So if you need a file build for that type of merchant, then that would have to be done just on the platform side of it. Now, that doesn't mean that the information doesn't eventually get over to MX Merchant, but it just doesn't happen in real time. So after they settle, if they're using a non-integrated solution, that information will port back over to MX Merchant so they can see that batch and transaction information once it does that. So we'll start with our virtual terminal. By definition, and most of you probably know this already, but a virtual terminal is a portal that a merchant would log into to most commonly do credit card transactions. Of course, our virtual terminal can do that. But additionally, our virtual terminal will allow the merchant to do cash, check, as well as ACH transactions if they have ACH.com turned on, all from the same gateway. Now, obviously, when it comes to a cash or a check payment, we're not handling that transaction in any way, but it really is just a central database that your merchant can use to keep a log of that customer's transaction history with them, because they do have the ability to create a customer database. Within that customer database, they can also secure cards on file. So if they're a type of business that does business with their customers on a repeat, they can save that card information so they don't have to data entry that information at every transaction. And they do have the ability to also save multiple cards tied to that customer profile. Also, what comes with the virtual terminal is the ability to offer what's called payment links or web payments. Now, I do have a slide on that specifically, but in short, it's a hosted URL page that your merchant can send their customers to pay them. And of course, from the same platform, they can see all of their reporting, they can access their statements, and where they would have the ability to activate SysNet and do their PCI compliance. Next, we have MX Express, MX Merchant Express. MX Merchant Express is our mobile app solution that does come with the virtual terminal. So everybody that has access to MX Merchant will be able to utilize the mobile app. That mobile app is supported on both Android and Apple, so they can download it on either of those devices. We do also support a Bluetooth reader. It's the Anywhere Commerce C3X reader today. So if they do want to purchase that Bluetooth reader, they can do swipe chip, NFC, and contactless transactions. Of course, if they don't have a reader, they can obviously key in the card information for that transaction. Or additionally, if they have a camera on the device that they're using, they can actually use the camera to pull that card information to save them the time of having to do that data entry. Of course, that camera is not saving the image of that card, so that won't be in their photos, but it does allow them to save the time and having to enter those 16 digits. They do have the ability to capture a signature on the screen during that transaction process. They also have the option to turn on a tip selector or a tip adjustment. It is in the settings of the mobile app itself, where they can have where they can collect tips. So think of a hairstylist that wants to use their phone to do their transactions. If they are using the customer database and they're saving cards on file, then they can actually recall that card on file information through the mobile app. Additionally, they can actually create customers on the mobile app and save that card information that will store to the database. Of course, they can manage all their batches and transaction information from the mobile app as well. So payment links, I mentioned this in a couple of slides previous, right? But payment links is a hosted URL page, right? So the merchant does have some customizable features available within payment links. As you can see with the image on the right-hand side, the merchant can put their logo in the top left-hand corner, right? Their business information would be in the top right-hand side. All that green font you see, that font style and font color, is customizable during that payment link creation. Of course, there's going to be required data fields on that payment link, such as the card number and expiration date and stuff like that. But they also can customize it with additional fields or questions. Those questions can be a checkbox of yes or no, It could be a drop-down of multiple choice where they pre-entered those multiple choice answers. Or of course, it can be a blank text box where that customer would answer that question appropriately. And they can also make those fields required during that transaction process if they want to or not. Now, when it comes to the payment amount, they can actually have it set as a fixed payment. So if they're sending somebody to their site to pay them a set dollar amount that they don't want them to be able to increase or decrease, they can customize the payment link there. They can also set it for a range of payments, or they can also have it be blank where that customer can enter in any payment amount appropriately.
Yeah,
Additionally, the
hi.
merchant does have the
Somebody
ability.
had called me last week as I was.
You're good, Tim.
I
Sorry,
didn't
I
catch
muted him. You're good. I think it was an
No worries.
accidental unmuting.
No worries at all. So they do also have the ability to create as many payment links as they want to. So if they need multiple for whatever reason, they do have the ability to do that. And this also, again, this comes with the virtual terminal, so there is no additional cost to offer this product to the merchant or you guys. So next we have MX Advantage. MX Advantage is our fee-based program, most commonly known as maybe cash discount, right? Today, MX Advantage has four programs available to you. And let me define those for you real quick, just so you completely understand what they are and how they work. So the first one is cash discount. And the reality of it is cash discount doesn't really have anything to do with a credit transaction, right? It is simply applying a discount to a cash tendered type payment. So the way that would work through the virtual terminal is if they are using the virtual terminal to create receipts for a cash check transaction and they have cash discount turned on, then a discount of that percentage would be shown on the receipt because that payment is being paid by a cash type tender. Additionally, ACH.com would also give a discount on that transaction because ACH is treated as a cash payment. So it really doesn't work through any type of terminal as far as cash discount is concerned, because there would never be a cash payment through a credit card terminal, right? Now, convenience fee would be the next product. And convenience fee, by definition, is if the merchant has an alternative means of that customer ordering where they wouldn't have to pay a convenience fee. So the easiest way to understand that is, let's take a restaurant into consideration, right? That restaurant offers an online ordering platform, eTab, right? In that environment, the merchant can charge a convenience fee because the customer can still call the restaurant or walk into the restaurant and order from them without being charged a convenience fee. Convenience fee can only be done by dollar amount, but it has no cap. So it can be any dollar amount that the merchant deems it to be. The next one is service fee. Service fee is MCC code specific. So there are only certain verticals that have the ability to charge a service fee. And you can find that information on our university website in the frequently asked questions of MX Advantage. But for instance, it's your schools, your municipalities, ticketing agencies that can charge a service fee. Service fee does require a registration process, right? By rule, they're not supposed to start charging those service fees until after 30 days of registration. Not sure how many people follow that rule, but that's the rule. But service fee can be done by dollar amount or percentage, and also has no cap. And then the last one is surcharge. And surcharge, by definition, gives the merchant the ability to charge a fee up to 3% on any credit-based transaction, non-debit. Now, the max that the merchant can charge the consumer is 3%. You, as the provider, can charge the merchant whatever you want to. But the merchant cannot charge more than they're being charged. So if you guys decided to offer somebody 2.75% in surcharging, then that would be the max that that merchant can charge the consumer, because they can't charge more than they're being charged. Now, there is another program out there that we're all probably aware of. Deja Vu calls it True Cash Discount. Valor calls it dual pricing. And what that is not an MX Advantage product. So that is all handled through the terminal file build. And to my understanding, you guys build your own files for Deja Vu and Valor. So how you want to deal with that internally is your prerogative on how you guys do a dual pricing or a true cash discount environment. But that does not have anything to do with the MX Advantage program. John, I do want to take a pause there just to see if there's any questions so far in what we've gone through to date, and we'll go from there on that.
Yeah, I did. I had one question come through the chat. And again, as a reminder, feel free to unmute yourself or ask the question in the chat. The question was, does MX capture credit card data for recurring billing, or does that have to manually be entered? And I think that was maybe back referencing the virtual terminal.
Right. So yeah, so we will get to the recurring billing product. It doesn't auto save it. So your merchant does need to create the profile and save the card on file. So if they were to go send them an invoice and that customer paid by the invoicing tool, that wouldn't automatically save the card on file for them.
I would,
Hope that answers
yeah,
the
hey, I was asking more so if you have a handheld device attached, not a terminal device attached to it. If you swipe that card through the terminal device, will it auto capture?
It does not.
Okay, okay.
Is that it, John?
That was the only question I had in the chat. We'll give just a second for anybody else that wants to unmute and ask a question. Here we go. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to just read this one. If a customer uses auth.net due to an integration need, would it be possible to see transactions live or a day later? You also mentioned it does not support, I think you said EBD and PIN debit were the ones, but there's a question about FSA, HSA. And then I noticed when doing an invoice number field is not an option. Where does the invoice number go, or is there an option to add it so that it's mandatory? It's a couple of questions layered on top of each other, but I'll let you answer them.
Perfect. Well, not that I don't know if I'll memorize all those off at the top of my head, but let's start with the auth.net question first. So auth.net, yes, it isn't. So they will be able to see that transaction information through auth.net at some point. It just doesn't happen in real time. So any device that they're using, whether it's auth.net, another third-party gateway, another terminal line, another POS system, if they have a merchant account with us, at some point that information will port over into MX Merchant for them to be able to see that batch and transaction information. It just doesn't happen in real time. It takes that 24 to 48 hour from settlement to report back to the gateway. In regards to PIN debit and EBT, yes, correct. It does not work through the front end processing of the gateway, right? So they would have to use it where it's talking just to the back end, whether that be First Data or TSYS, right? In regards to the HSA cards, those cards are SIC code specific. So as long as your merchant has the proper SIC code when they're being set up, then those HSA cards will work through the gateway or through a terminal or whatever it may be.
Awesome.
And what was the other one?
The last one was when doing an invoice number field is not an option. It looks like it was asking for purchase order or description.
Correct.
Yeah. Is there an option to add it?
So that is a limitation of the system. So the system basically starts with its own invoice number, and you don't have the ability to manipulate that. The only place that an invoice or a number field could be entered is in that PO section. So if they needed to reference back to maybe QuickBooks, because QuickBooks has an invoice number, right, they would probably just want to enter that number from QuickBooks into the PO section. You can't customize your invoice number on the platform. It just starts with, I think, 1,000, and then it goes up from there as they create new invoices.
Hey, Tim, Dean Sturts here. I got a quick question for you. When you were just represent the other question about auth.net and MX Merchant. So that's two payment gateways. What's the advantage of primarily using auth.net and still having MX Merchant tied to the back end to just get some more information? You still have all that information available on auth.net. So.
Yeah, 100%. And it may not be a benefit, right? So typically, auth.net would obviously come into play if it's required on whatever they're processing through, right? So maybe they're using a website and a shopping cart, and the only integration is, auth.net. So in that circumstance, MX Merchant may not be a need, unless they do want to have like a backup processing method ability, like using the mobile app, then they would need to have a login to MX Merchant to be able to use that login to use the mobile app.
Okay. Thanks.
Someone has their hand up.
Hi, I just want to confirm that we only can use I guess it's called the C3X reader. So no terminal, actual terminal can be connected to the virtual terminal. Is that correct?
No, so the C2X reader is only for the mobile app.
Okay.
Yeah, or C3X, I think it's actually now. They have a version up now. So it's a 3.3X that only works with the mobile app. The 4 terminal lines that we have, those will all work through the gateway or report to the gateway live, right? If your merchant wants to initiate the transaction from the gateway and have the consumer complete the transaction on the terminal, then you'd have to use Deja Vu or Valor and do a semi-integration setup.
Okay. Okay, and the other
Does
option
that
would
help?
be that, yeah, I think so.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up question on that?
Well, when you mentioned that the Valor and the Deja Vu were the only two that they can use where they can push the transaction through and the customer actually performs the transaction. And I'm assuming on the other ones, then that would be that they would have to enter the number into the terminal before the customer can pay.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So almost like in that integration solution where the merchant is entering it at the terminal level, they would probably want to have the customer hand the card to them. Unless they want to flip the terminal around every time after they enter it, that obviously is an option as well. Or you can always attach a PIN pad to it. But keeping in mind that a PIN pad typically initiates PIN debit, and that doesn't work on the gateway. So it's a little bit muddy, but it depends on how they want to set up.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course. So the next tool that we have available on the gateway is called invoicing, right? Our invoicing tool does allow the merchant to create a multi-line invoice. Each line on that invoice can be taxed or discounted separately, or they can tax or discount the whole order if they so choose to. Additionally, it does have a pay online feature available that's toggleable. What I mean there is that if your merchant creates an invoice and that invoice still has a balance and that pay online feature is turned on, when they send that invoice to the customer would then be able to click a link and enter in their own credit card information to pay for that invoice. Additionally, if your merchant has ach.com turned on, they can send the invoice out where that customer click a link and enter in their routing and account number to pay for that invoice. And the payment method is also toggleable. So if they do have both credit and ACH on their platform, and for some reason when they send an invoice out to somebody, they only want that somebody to be able to pay by ACH, they can deselect the credit option when sending that invoice out, and that would be the only way that they could pay is entering their routing and account number, or vice versa. So they can deselect ACH and only allow that consumer to pay by credit. So it is up to them in regards to that payment method. Our invoicing tool does allow for multiple payments to be posted. So if they're a type of business that takes a down payment, they want to tag that down payment to the invoice before they send it out to the consumer, they can do that as well. And they also do have the ability to upload their logo on the invoice, so it's nice and clean and professional when they're sending it out to their customers. What comes with invoicing is also the ability to offer recurring payments. Just like invoicing, recurring can have multiple lines where each line is taxed or discounted individually, or they can tax or discount the whole order. In regards to the payment terms, they can literally do anything that they want to. It can be a future one-time payment, it can be weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, second Tuesday of every month, anything specific that they want is totally up to them. They can also set it for a number of occurrences. So if they're allowing their customers to do maybe a payment plan where they want them to pay something over, 4 installments, they would enter 4, and then after that 4th payment is made, that recurring profile will stop automatically. They can also set it to be unlimited, and based on those payment terms, it'll continue to charge that customer until they go in and manually stop it. Also with recurring, they don't necessarily have to use it to collect payment. If they want to use it to automate invoices, so they know that they're sending the same invoice out to the same customer for the same amount every month, and they don't want to have to create that new invoice every time, then they can have recurring billing do that for them, where they're not collecting money, they're just automating an invoice to somebody so they can pay them for the goods and services that they provided. This is an example of what the receipt would look like. So the business's logo would be in the top left, just like payment links, business information in the top right. Underneath that would be the customer's information and any details they have tied to that customer. So for this invoice, all we have is their email address, but if I had their physical address or their phone number, that would also show up on this invoice as well. Underneath that are the items with the descriptions of the products and services that are being sold. They do have the ability to customize a memo at every invoice to make it personable to that customer. If there are any payments made to that invoice, the payment information will show up underneath there. And they also do have the ability to customize their return policy in the settings sections of MX Merchant. Another feature we have is called B2B Interchange Optimizer. Interchange Optimizer helps with level 2 and level 3 processing. That does allow the merchant to reduce their interchange cost on qualified corporate credit cards. if Interchange Optimizer is turned on, it'll work on any transaction that is being processed through the gateway. So whether that's the mobile app, the terminal integration, invoicing, recurring, payment links, all of that will allow the merchant to get that reduction of interchange. If they're doing a swipe transaction, they literally don't have to do anything except for swipe that card or read that chip. If they're doing a key transaction, the only requirement is for them to enter the billing zip code of that cardholder. And then our system will enter in all those other required data fields to help them reduce that interchange cost. If you guys are out soliciting and you're looking at competitor statements, just some quick information for you. On that statement, if you see terminology such as DR1, rate 1, or data rate 1, that means that that merchant is accepting those corporate credit cards and would benefit from this product if it was turned on.
Hey,
Another product we have.
Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead, Dean.
I just have a question.
No, you're good.
On the business data, corporate data and stuff. Is there any process or method of actually looking to see how well the cards are qualifying on the back end, so that, you know, if you had done everything, the assumption is everything's qualifying, but do you go back? Is there a way to go back and actually make sure that that's happening, or to say, hey, we had 3 transactions, they did not qualify, but here's the reason why, you know?
So every corporate card doesn't qualify for a rate reduction. It is only certain ones. So
Sure.
as I said, when you're looking at the competitor statement, you'll see that DR1, DR2, or rate 2, or DR1, rate 1, or data rate 1. On our statement, that terminology should change to data rate 2, DR2, or rate 2. So you can see that those are the ones that are qualifying. Those are the most common terminologies. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but in all honesty, I don't know what they are off the top of my head.
Sure. No, my question was just, how do you, is there a way to verify it that hey, all the cards that were available to download or to downgrade to, or to, excuse me, to downgrade to a better rate happened?
Right. So if they do have it turned on and you looked at the statement from us once it's generated, if you see the 2 instead of a 1, that means that those cards qualified. What the other cards that qualify for are, I don't know that information, nor do I know where we can get that information. I don't know how transparent Visa is in providing that.
All right, thanks.
Yep. So another product we have is called Account Updater. This is going to be really good for those folks that are using recurring billing or card on file information. So what Account Updater does is for any Visa, Master, or Discover that is reissued by the same issuer because maybe that card was lost, it was stolen, it expired, our system will actually pick up that information and update that card on file for your merchant automatically. So it does help them reduce the number of declines that they would get in that recurring or on account on file billing method. We do provide them with a changes report so they can see what cards were changed in any given month, so they do know that their product is working for them as intended. I mentioned this a couple of times earlier, but we do have ACH.com. ACH.com is a priority-owned product, and it does allow your merchant to collect from their clients via their checking account instead of charging a credit card. ACH.com is an approved product for any merchant that has an approved merchant account. However, if you do have merchants that are going to be heavy ACH, where they're doing more than $100,000 a month in ACH transactions, it is possible that underwriting will ask for additional documentation, such as tax returns or bank statements to support their transactions, right? Also, through the gateway, ACH.com is a debit-only environment, meaning that your merchant can only collect from their customers. Now, that doesn't mean that if they need to issue a refund or something like that, that they can't do it. They can totally do that, but they can't issue credits. So if you have a merchant that says, oh, you know what, I want to pay my vendors through ACH, or I want to pay my payroll through ACH, you can't do that through the MX Merchant Gateway. They would have to set up an account directly with ACH.com, and then they can use that platform to be able to do a credit and a debit environment. I know it's not super common, but just want you guys to have that tidbit piece of information. Another pretty neat product we have available on the platform is called MX Insights. MX Insights is a data analytics tool. Now, when it comes to data analytics, it's very important to understand your audience, because the reality of it is every merchant is not going to see the value in what analytics can provide them, right? The guy that owns his pizza place for 30 years in a Rip White t-shirt with no email address, he probably isn't going to care about analytics. But that trendy place that opened down the road and every dish is named after a celebrity and they're all over social media, that's the clientele that's probably going to see the value in what analytics can provide them. And the cool thing about our system is we can give them a bunch of information. So some pieces of information that we can give them is we can help them compare against their competition in the area. So our system takes 10 like businesses in the area and allows that business to compare against that competition by spend per customer, by spend per day of the week, so they can see how busy they are versus their competition at any given time. We're also able to provide them with demographic information. So we can tell them the average age of their customer, what education levels they have, what gender is most popular, what income levels they have, and if they have kids or not. We can also tell them the zip codes that their business is coming from. Now, maybe more importantly, from a marketing standpoint, that would tell the business what zip codes their business is not coming from. They can run a marketing campaign to that zip code and then go back to the analytics to see if the marketing money they spent was worth that investment. And then lastly, we can also give them loyalty information. So we can tell them on average how long it takes for a customer to come back from their business, to come back to their business and buy from them again. If they think that gap is too wide, then maybe they do implement some type of a loyalty or rewards program to try to get those customers to come back in more often. And then the last product we have here is called QuickBooks Sync. QuickBooks Sync is not a QuickBooks integration. It is simply a sync of transactional data of any transaction that is processed through our gateway. So what happens in that environment is at the end of the business day, all of the transactions processed through the gateway, including the terminal integration, at the end of the day, that information will port over into their QuickBooks Online for them automatically. So saving the time of them having to do it manually and what they're probably doing without a product like this today. It does only work with QuickBooks Online, so it does not work with QuickBooks Desktop, and it does not work with QuickBooks POS. And that is MX Merchant. Happy to open it up for questions if there are any.
I have
everyone
one.
asleep, John.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
have one.
You got one.
Can we go back to the MX account update, merchant account update? Is that part of the virtual terminal? Is that an extra? Is that an add-on? That would be the merchant. Okay, the update and the ACH is the add-on.
Yes, interchange optimizer, account updater, invoicing and recurring are one product, but that has an additional fee. QuickBooks Sync has an additional fee. So the only thing that comes with the virtual terminal is the virtual terminal. So with MX Merchant, I should say, as a base would be the virtual terminal, the payment links, and the mobile app. Everything else is an add-on or additional cost. And what those costs are, you can check with your supervisors because I don't know.
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm asking what is considered an add-on. Thank you.
Of course, understood. Of course.
Okay, a couple of questions came through the chat, Tim. I'll ask those. We had somebody said, I've connected the mobile reader directly through PayBridge for a card-present transaction on the virtual terminal, but it disconnected and required a restart after some time had passed. Is that a rare occurrence, or does the software require a restart each time, or is there a timeout feature to it?
In my experience is if they're logged out of the mobile app, it disconnects the connection of the reader. Now, obviously, that's going to be relevant to their device itself. So if they have their automatic lock screen or something like that turned on, then that may cause them to log out of the app. But typically, in my experience, it's when they log out is where the device disconnects. But if they're logged in or if the app is open, it should stay connected. If they are experiencing more trouble than that, then I would recommend emailing out to our MX Merchant team to give them the case so they can look into it on the back end to see if they see anything on their side.
Okay, perfect. Another question that came in said, when reviewing payments on the dashboard, I don't see a way to sort by fields, for instance, memo or invoice or amount. Is there a trick to be able to do that?
So if you're looking if you're logged into MX Merchant and you're looking in the search field, there's like a little kind of hourglass looking thing. If you click on that, or even the arrow to the right of that, I don't have it memorized, I'm sorry. There should be a drop down where you can customize those settings as far as what you want to be able to see.
Okay. And then QuickBooks Sync only ports the total amount of transactions. It doesn't check off specific invoices, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
It's just transactional data is the only thing that it's syncing.
Okay. And then, so back to the timeout question from a moment before. I think you answered it for mobile. Is it the same way for virtual terminal?
The virtual terminal doesn't log out.
Okay, so in that case, if they're having to restart, that's probably something we'll open a ticket on then, right?
Correct.
Okay. Is recurring billing available with ACH.com?
Absolutely. Invoicing and recurring do have ACH capabilities. Keeping in mind that invoice and recurring on one product. If somebody's churning on invoicing, they'll get recurring capabilities as well.
Okay. On the sorting on the dashboard that you mentioned, do you have the ability to show that? Do you have a demo version of the dashboard that you could actually share and show, or is that?
Let me see if I can get in.
And while he's doing that, I'll open it up to anybody else that has questions, either through the chat or that wants to unmute themselves and ask.
Do we have any literature for the recurring billing?
If you go to university, there should be some information there for you on it.
How about like a demo video or something to show to the customer?
So there are some videos also on university. They might be a little bit dated at this point. Don't actually have a demo MX Merchant account, so your organization would have to give you an MX Merchant login to be able to do like live in-person demos with your prospects. John, specifically again, what were they looking for the?
It was when looking at payments in the dashboard, trying to look for a way to sort by fields. So, for instance, amount or memo line.
So when you're in payments, right, it's going to give you a list of payments. Over here in the search section, you can customize what you want to look for. So that's where you're able to change those search criteria. Additionally, if you go to settings here, hard to see because it's grayed out. But as you can see, the grid is showing me what is clicked off now. So that's what's showing on the main page. If I wanted to add or deselect any of them, then we can remove that information on the view from there. So like if I wanted to take away the reference number, see how the reference number is green there? If I deselected that, now that reference number is gone. I want to add it back in, that reference number go back up.
Perfect. I think that's exactly what they were looking for. Thank you, Tim.
So little settings tool, and you can also use that drop down arrow.
All right, I think that's all the questions I have in the chat. I'll stall for a minute here just to give anyone else a chance to ask a question, either in the chat or unmute themselves.
Of course, if something comes to mind later, obviously send an email out to John. He can check with me and we'll get those answers for you as well.
Yep, myself or the sales support team, either are happy to help. Tim, thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for going through this. I will say, just from a sales standpoint, I know MX Express is one of those. We've got some of our seasoned sales agents that they share that every single time as kind of a, hey, you already have this, because that's always great if network, electricity, any of the things go down when they happen to go down. That's a great backup for almost any kind of merchant. So
absolutely, it helps be proactive versus reactive, right? Like if you are doing your install for the terminal, while you're doing that install, hey, Mr. Merchant, download this app. You have it available to you at any time. God forbid you lose your internet. So your waitress spills water on the machine and it doesn't work anymore. At least you have the peace of mind that you can immediately continue to transact. Because we all know that type of situation doesn't happen on a Tuesday afternoon when nobody's in there. Happens on Friday night at 6 o'clock when they got a line out the door, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, team will send the recording out here in about an hour, and I hope everyone has a wonderful Tuesday. Thanks all.
Thanks all. Pleasure.